know how it works.
The movie opened with a scene at an opera house in Budapest where a hitman, Joe, was pretending to be a regular audience member. He was keeping a close eye on his target and the bodyguards who were protecting him. Once everyone was in their seats and the show had begun, Joe made his way upstairs. A few minutes later, one of the bodyguards noticed a shoe behind a curtain and went to investigate. However, it was a trap set by Joe, who suddenly killed him with a knife and hid the body behind the curtain.
They just act hard. Tony Montana had a style.
Joe moved through the corridor and shot the other bodyguard before he finally found his target on the balcony. The man offered to pay Joe triple the amount he was currently getting, but Joe turned him down and shot him in the head. He then told the man's date to stay silent, and the woman ran away. Joe looked down at the stage, and for a second he made eye contact with Mays, the star of the show. He decided to leave, but on his way out, he started to get a headache and feel dizzy. Downstairs, another bodyguard saw the woman run away and tried to contact his boss. When he got no answer, he rushed to investigate and found all the bodies. At that moment, the security team saw him with a gun and prepared to arrest him, so the bodyguard opened fire. He only managed to kill one officer before the other one hid to call for help. The bodyguard then hid on the balcony, and when the officer came after him, he was shot through the door. All the lights in the theater suddenly turned on, and the bodyguard decided to jump off the balcony, landing in the middle of the stage. The dancers in the audience immediately panicked and started to run away, while another officer appeared on the balcony to shoot the bodyguard from afar. Mays was trying to run away with the others, but the panicking crowd accidentally pushed her to the ground, causing her to drop her phone and have her hand and feet stomped on. At that moment, Joe saw her and picked her up, along with her phone, to take her outside. As soon as he put her down, his headache started again, so he waited for Mays to get distracted and then disappeared. When he got home, Joe realized he still had Mays's phone. He took some medicine and drank a lot of alcohol before going to bed. The next day, Joe went to see a doctor who ran a bunch of tests and theorized that Joe might be suffering the effects of years of head trauma. The test results would be ready later, but the doctor advised Joe to start thinking about getting a new job. Afterward, Joe visited his handler and close friend Zvi, who also thought Joe needed a vacation and to meet someone special. After a lot of hesitation, Joe went to the dance studio to give Mays back her phone. She was very grateful and gave him her number while flirting with him. On his way out, Joe threw the number in the trash, but he quickly regretted it and took it back. In the evening, he very awkwardly texted Mays, and they agreed to go on a date. They ended up having dinner together and had a wonderful time, although Joe never revealed his real job. For the next few days, Joe divided his time between dating Mays and doing more mercenary missions in different places like France, Romania, Austria, and Switzerland. His relationship with Mays grew serious, and they started spending their nights together. Sadly, the headaches never stopped, and the medicine was no longer as effective. When the test results were finally ready, the doctor had bad news for Joe. He had a neurodegenerative brain disorder. There was no cure for it, which meant Joe only had 3 months left to live. Stuck in a state of shock, Joe turned down the doctor's offer of palliative care and therapy. Instead, he went home and started researching the illness online. There were many videos of people losing control of their limbs and information confirming there was no cure. Joe grabbed a gun and considered ending things, but he reminded himself to think of Mays. He opened a secret safe in the floor and took out all his money. Then he grabbed all his weapons and threw them in the river. The following day, Joe went to see Zvi and said he wanted to offer $2 million for his own head. He explained that he would have self-deleted, but life insurance would not pay for that, and he wanted Mays to get the insurance money. However, Zvi refused to put a contract on his best friend, no matter how much he was paid. Afterward, Joe went to see Antoinette, who also used to be an assassin but now worked as a handler. Her bodyguard was Max, a killer known for his brutality. Antoinette had a personal grudge against Joe because he had killed her father, even though he had mentored him. She was delighted to put a contract on his head. Since Joe still had a few things to do, he asked her to activate the mission at midnight. After Joe's departure, Antoinette began reviewing the assassin app to select the hitmen for the mission. She first contacted Lovedoll, who was in Switzerland completing another contract. Upon seeing her message, he declined the job, stating that $2 million was not a high enough reward. The message was then sent to Goyang and his gang, who were at a karaoke bar in Prague. The gang had been pretending to be workers all along, but they revealed themselves and killed their targets in a matter of seconds, using their combined teamwork. Goyang happily accepted the contract on Joe's life. Just in case, Antoinette also sent the mission to the Langos brothers, who were in the process of killing a man by tying him to their bikes and pulling in opposite directions to split his body. That night, Joe met with Mays, unaware that Max was following them. Joe ended their relationship, and Mays gave him one last kiss before leaving in tears. Afterward, Joe went home and started drinking while recording a message for Mays that would reveal the whole truth. He intended for the message to be sent after his death, but he accidentally pressed the wrong button and sent it before it was complete. As Mays was listening to the message, Joe received a call from his doctor with shocking news. Joe's test results had been mixed up with another patient's. He wasn't going to die. In fact, he was perfectly healthy and could live a long life. With only 5 minutes left before midnight, Joe set up a trap. Soon, Goyang and his gang arrived and used cigarette smoke to reveal the laser sensors at the entrance. They easily dodged the sensors and moved further inside while Joe spoke from his hiding spot, saying he was canceling the contract. However, Goyang insulted him and reminded him that contracts should be honored. A gang member followed the sound of Joe's voice into the bathroom, where Joe was waiting to fight. The man was skilled in martial arts, but Joe easily overpowered him and threw him through a glass wall. Next, a woman with an axe attacked him from behind, only for Joe to push her down onto the broken glass and drag her throat across the shards to kill her. The martial artist got angry and attacked again, but when he tried a special kick, Joe broke his leg and threw him through the wall. Then another gang member attacked Joe with a sword, and a new fight ensued. After exchanging a few hits, Joe grabbed the man's arm to break it and disarm him. He then killed him by throwing him against a column. The last gang member came after Joe with 2 large blades, and after many missed hits, she managed to stab Joe in the shoulder. He was able to continue fighting, punching the woman so hard that she lost a bunch of teeth. The only one left was Goyang, who threw a knife at Joe's leg, only for Joe to kill him with the blade from his shoulder. After lighting Goyang's cigarettes as a final gesture, Joe left the apartment and activated a trap that blew up his home and killed the toothless woman. On the street, Joe used Goyang's phone to call Antoinette, telling her he was canceling the contract, but that she could keep the money. Antoinette became furious because she still wanted revenge for her father, so she announced that she would be doubling the reward. Hearing some bikes approaching, Joe entered an old building and was surrounded by the Langos brothers, who used tricks with their bikes to attack. Joe managed to dodge a few of their attacks, but most of them kept bringing him down. Luckily, he found a pipe nearby, and the next time a brother came after him, he hit him with it, throwing him off his bike before stepping on his head to kill him.
Yeah, I know how it works.
The other brother yelled in anger and sped up, only for Joe to kick the bike's front wheel and send him flying. Joe was then able to steal the bike to escape. Meanwhile, Antoinette sent the mission to the best hitmen in Europe. Lovedoll was still in Switzerland having fun with women, but when he noticed that the reward was now 4 million, he finally accepted. In Scotland, the Mackenzie brothers also accepted the mission and celebrated by breaking beer bottles on each other's heads. In a dirty club in England, the party girls pretended to be dancers to kill all the clients with weapons cleverly hidden in their small clothes. A client tried to fight back, but the girls were good fighters and easily brought him down. In Spain, a group of criminals was preparing some happy powder to sell, but they were interrupted by Bodas, who used dance steps and knives in his boots to kill all the men in the room with impressive skill. Meanwhile, Joe went to see Zivy, who used glues to take care of his wounds. Since Zivy was just a handler, he didn't have any guns. He could only offer Joe some leftover explosives from a previous job. Zivy's wife volunteered to help too, and gave Joe a very thorough massage that included cracking his neck. This instantly caused Joe's headache, dizziness, and double vision to stop.
You're welcome.
Soon after, Lovedoll arrived in Budapest by train, and Antoinette sent him all the information she had on Joe, including Maze's location. She also sent her cousin, Money, to pick Lovedoll up. Money was very annoying and a little stupid, but Antoinette had promised her uncle that she would train him to be a hitman too. They went to Maze's building and surrounded her as she was on her way out. Maze immediately kicked Money to the ground, so Lovedoll knocked her out with a punch and kidnapped her. In the morning, Joe traveled to an old castle in the countryside, and Max quickly learned about it. The information was sent to all the hitmen, who hurried to that location. However, this was all part of a plan. Zvi had intentionally leaked the intel. At the castle, Joe got all his weapons ready. The Mackenzie brothers were the first to arrive. They entered the castle, and Joe threw a grenade at them before coming out to fight. At first, Joe did well against just one brother, but when the siblings teamed up, they managed to grab him and kick him into a set of armor. Joe took the armor's gauntlet and used it to fight again, now throwing more powerful punches thanks to the metal. However, their teamwork continued to bring Joe down. Suddenly, the brothers started having a pointless argument, and Joe used the chance to activate one of his traps. He pulled a rope to bring down a chandelier and trap one of the brothers, who was pushed toward a deer head and instantly impaled.
What's that smell?
Joe then took a piece of antler and fought the other brother again, exchanging a few hits before stabbing him to death. At that moment, the party girls came in, firing their weapons, so Joe used the dead guy's body as a shield to run into another room. The girls threw a grenade, but Joe dodged it and used the brother's gun to fire back. Soon, another grenade came, and this one did hurt him before he managed to hide. The gunfight continued, and Joe ran out of bullets, so one of the girls tried to approach him. She accidentally stepped on a trap, and the resulting explosion brought her down. Joe immediately dragged her body to a corner and activated her grenades before throwing her at the other woman so that the explosion killed them both at the same time. Joe managed to steal their gun before the explosion sent him flying through a door. Bodice was waiting for him and quickly disarmed him before putting on his earbuds so the music could guide his moves. A hand-to-hand fight ensued, and Bodice was such a great warrior that he easily kept up with Joe. They kept throwing each other all over the room, and Bodice hurt Joe with his boots, so in return, Joe made him lose the earbuds. Since punches were doing nothing, they grabbed a pair of swords to continue fighting. After a few minutes, Joe managed to disarm Bodice, who found a gun and opened fire. Joe ran to hide behind a table and activated another trap that blew Bodice up, only leaving his boots behind. Outside, Lovedoll's group arrived, and he immediately guessed that this was a trap because he saw all the hitmen's vehicles at the entrance. Lovedoll told Money to watch over Maze while he went to investigate. As soon as Lovedoll was out of sight, Maze said she needed to stretch her legs and manipulated Money into letting her leave the car. She then pretended to fall and grabbed a branch to knock Money out. Meanwhile, Lovedoll called Joe using Maze's phone and offered to free her if Joe handed himself in. They were forced to hang up when Max arrived with a whole armed team. They entered the castle and began looking around while being careful to avoid any traps. Joe was hiding in the shadows and activated an explosive that brought down half the team. Joe then snuck around to stab a soldier and take his gun, using it to kill the other guys in the room and escape through the back door. Lovedoll was waiting for him in the garden and made him drop the gun. Before they could reach a deal, Maze appeared in Money's car and ran over Lovedoll before opening the door for Joe. The couple escaped together while Max's remaining men tried to open fire, but to no avail. On the road, Joe finally told Maze everything about the illness mix-up and his real job. He explained that he killed criminals and not civilians, and swore that he was retiring. Maze was glad to hear that because she was pregnant. As they agreed to work things out, Maze suddenly passed out and Joe discovered a bullet wound in her neck. He decided to abandon the car and carried Maze to the nearest building, which happened to be a church. Thankfully, the bullet had only grazed Maze's body, and she quickly woke up. Joe was so relieved that he asked her to marry him, and she agreed. The local priest was skeptical because they didn't have a marriage license, there were no witnesses, and neither of them were Catholic. In the end, he agreed to do it if they gave confession. The poor priest was horrified to hear all about Joe's assassinations, but when Joe explained that he wanted a second chance in life to be a father, the priest agreed to give him redemption as long as he swore to retire. The humble ceremony began, and Joe used a grenade pin as a ring. They were interrupted by Lovedoll, who opened fire. Joe tackled Mays to save her, and the priest was shot instead. Suddenly, a grenade was thrown inside the church, and the explosion caused enough smoke for Joe and Mays to escape with the priest. The explosive had come from Max, who started arguing with Lovedoll over whose contract this was. While in the back room, the couple took care of the priest's wound. Lovedoll opened fire and managed to bring a few of Max's men down. Joe soon came back and shot a few soldiers down as well. Grenades kept falling and exploding, which started a small fire. When Lovedoll tried to fight a soldier hand-to-hand, Max threw another explosive that caused a scaffolding to fall and trap Lovedoll. Max then started searching the church, killing his last man because he was injured. Joe tried to surprise him from behind, and they ended up in a standoff, only for Joe to discover that he had run out of bullets. A smug Max announced that he had won, but before he could shoot, Mays blew up his head first.
Or you go out on your...
In the meantime, Antoinette was getting her things ready to leave the country. Zvi showed up to announce that she had broken the rules just like her father, and then shot her in the head. Sometime later, Joe and Mays had a proper wedding with the now recovered priest and all their friends. Joe was ready to start his life as a retired man, but Mays realized that raising a kid was very expensive and told her husband to maybe do a couple more jobs. So, what did you think of the movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.